was 13 when I first got access to a computer.
My parents bought me a Macintosh in 1984 when I was 8 years old. I was in 6th grade.
I learned to code in college.
Freshman year, first semester, intro to computer science.
I wrote a program to play tic-tac-toe.
I think it was pretty humble beginnings. I think the first program I wrote asked things like, what's your favorite color? Or how old are you?
I first learned how to make a green circle and a red square appear on the screen.
The first time I actually had something come up and say, hello world, and I made a computer do that. It was just astonishing.
Learning how to program didn't start off as wanting to learn all of computer science or trying to master this discipline or anything like that. It just started off because I wanted to do this one simple thing. I wanted to make something that was fun for myself and my sisters. And I wrote this little program and then basically just add a little bit to it. And then when I needed to learn something new, I looked it up either in a book or on the internet and then added a little bit to it.
It's really not unlike kind of playing an instrument or something, or playing a sport. It starts out being very intimidating, but you kind of get the hang of it over time.
Coding is something that can be learned, and I know it can be intimidating. A lot of things are intimidating, but what isn't?
A lot of the coding that people do is actually fairly simple. It's more about the process of breaking down problems than sort of coming up with complicated algorithms as people traditionally think about it.
You don't have to be a genius to know how to code. You need to be determined.
Addition, subtraction, that's about it.
You should probably know your multiplication tables.
You don't have to be a genius to code. Do you have to be a genius to read?
Even if you want to become a race car driver or play baseball or build a house, all of these things have been turned upside down by software.
What it is, computers are everywhere. You want to work in agriculture? Do you want to work in entertainment? Do you want to work in manufacturing? It's just all over.
Here we are, 2013. We all depend on technology to communicate, to bank, information, and none of us know how to read and write code.
When I was in school, I was in this after-school group called the Whiz Kids. And when people found out, they laughed at me and, all these things. And I'm like, man, I don't care. I think it's cool. And, I'm learning a lot. And some of my friends have jobs.
Our policy is literally to hire as many talented engineers as we can find. The whole limit in the system is just that there just aren't enough people who are trained and have these skills today.
To get the very best people, we try to make the office as awesome as possible.
We have a fantastic chef.
Free food,
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
free laundry,
snacks, even places to play and video games and scooters. There's all these kind of interesting things around the office and places where people can play or relax or go to think or play music or be creative.
Whether you're trying to make a lot of money or whether you just want to change the world, computer programming is an incredibly empowering skill to learn.
I think if someone had told me that software is really about humanity, that it's really about helping people by using computer technology, it would have changed my outlook a lot earlier.
To be able to actually come up with an idea and then see it in your hands and then be able to press a button and have it be in millions of people's hands. I think we're the first generation in the world that's really ever had that kind of experience.
Just to think that, you can start something in your college dorm room and you can have a set of people who haven't built a big company before come together and build something that 1 billion people use as part of their daily lives is just crazy to think about, right? It's humbling and it's amazing.
The programmers of tomorrow are the wizards of the future. You're gonna look like you have magic powers compared to everybody else.
I think it's amazing. I think it's the closest thing we have to a superpower.
Great coders are today's rock stars. That's it.
you for coming to Gunn Engineering Night. We know people are very busy this time of year, and we really appreciate your presence. We want to recognize some VIPs that have joined us today. Mr. Dana Tom from our PAUSD School Board, and any other school board members that are out there.
We are Natalie Macraz and Stephen Watson, current engineering students at Gunn. Michael Dresser and Jackson Washura are both engineering students and are helping in the booth.
Gunn has many excellent, high-profile programs. Whether it is the spring musical or athletics or choir or orchestra, we enjoy the wonderful work done by so many of our peers.
Engineering does not enjoy the same visibility, yet great work is done by many of our students every year, whether with robotics or with software. Maybe more impressive is where their work can lead.
The Newell Award winner Fred Brooks once said, "The scientist builds in order to study. The engineer studies in order to build."
Tonight, we will celebrate the engineering works and feats of many Gunn graduates from the past 10 years. We will see how engineers work in many fields and have incredible opportunity for creativity, for making the world a much better place in the process.
We will be hearing from many engineers this evening, after which, their time permitting, there may be an opportunity to talk to them outside of Spangenberg Theater. Up next is Tyler Adams, who just graduated from UC Berkeley with a math and electrical engineering and computer science bachelor's degree. He will begin his career at Square in New York City this August. Welcome, Tyler.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. So, as they said, I am Tyler Adams, and I want to talk to you about one of my favorite projects that I worked on during my free time. So this presentation is going to be about how I went about completing this project, the sort of obstacles I faced, how I overcame them, the sort of decisions I had to make, how I made them, and how I allocated my time, what I decided was important and what was less important. So this project was inspired by my love for Super Smash Bros. I played a lot of Super Smash Bros. In college. And my friends and I would be competitive. And we would want to look at our games later, see how we did, see, maybe, oh, I should have done this move differently. But it's kind of a pain to do this manually, to record the video and put it on YouTube. And so I thought, why not a computer do it? Why not a computer take the video, parse it into individual games, and then upload each game on YouTube as a single video. So I headed out to do that. There you go. So to record the video, I decided to use a TiVo like this one here. And the reason I used this TiVo was simple. It was lying around my house, and I just had one, and I knew how to use it. I'm sure there are better video capture cards. I'm sure there are better TiVos out there, but I knew how to use this one. And I put up with all the frustrations and it crashing all the time and the fact that video format was weird simply because I knew how to use it and I wanted to get on to the more fun stuff. There we go, like this. So once you've recorded the video, now you have to extract the individual games. And if you've played a game of Smash, you start the game, you play a game, then it ends, you go to a selection screen. And so you'd think you'd have to use some sort of fancy, crazy algorithm to get that out, but you don't. This algorithm right here, which is only, 20 lines, does everything. There's some stuff that's hidden inside of some of the method calls, but this algorithm is very short and very simple. It doesn't use any advanced techniques with the exception of mutual recursion. These functions ping-pong back and forth, calling one another. But that's it. And the reason that I was able to write such a simple algorithm and not worry about it so much is because of how I defined a game. So at first when I played the game, I was like, oh, games look like, oh man, this came out really bad. Games look kind of like this when they start, and kind of like this when they end. And all I needed to do, and I said, all right, well, I'll just take pieces of video that look like that when they start, and look like that when they end. But this turned out not to be good enough, because I would start getting videos that were like 2 games back and forth. So a game would start, and then it would end, and then it would start again, but my processor would capture both games as if it were one game. And so I said, well, videos can't just start looking like a game and ending looking like a game, they have to satisfy another property. And this property is the fact that in the middle of the game, it can never look like one of these two states. You will never have a frame that looks like the beginning or end of a game. And once you do that, can I go back a slide? Once I do that, I can use this algorithm, and I can take advantage of it. And so the algorithm wasn't the hard part. The hard part was coming up with this very clever definition, coming up with something a little non-intuitive to make this algorithm work and make it work fairly simply. So the second thing is, going back to here, when I look at a game, I can look at that and I can say, that looks like the start of a game. But how does a computer know? How can a computer tell? Well, pictures are just a bunch of pixels. And if I have a frame in my game that's going to look like a start frame, it's going to have similar colors at the same pixel values as that guy or this guy here. And if I can just somehow subtract them, then I can treat them like vectors. And I'm assuming most of you have taken high school math and know in vectors I can take the difference between two vectors to see how far away they are. And if the frame that I'm interested in is very similar to that frame, then the distance should be small. And if it's not something I'm interested in, then the distance should be big. So I proceeded to just use this very simple intuition from math to sort of rank how far away these frames were. Now, how do you know whether a frame is close or far? What's the difference, I could go, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have frames going all the way to 100, when do I set that cutoff? Well, I just guessed. I would just take about 10 minutes of video and looked at all the differences between the frame at that point in the video and that frame there. And when I graphed it, I saw that most of the time it hovered around 50,000. And when it was the beginning of a frame, it would drop all the way down to about 10,000. So I set the bar at 12,000, and it worked. And that was it. Nothing clever, nothing advanced, just simple stuff that I learned in high school, simple just thinking about how this might work. And the last part is, once you have these videos, how do you put them on YouTube? If any of you have uploaded a video on YouTube, you know you have to point and click. And computers are terrible at doing things like pointing and clicking. What they're not terrible at is command line commands. Computers are great at running command line commands. And Google was really nice, and they came out with a Google command line interface to YouTube, so that all you need to do is type in that first command, and you can upload that video. And a computer can do that. And since the computer created the video file, it knows where the video file is, and therefore it can run that command. And all right, I don't know why it's not going to the next one, but that's it. Thank you for your time.
She believes that engineering gives us the opportunity to help improve lives and make progress in society. Emily was the president and founder of Research, Science, and Invention Club, where students initiate engineering projects and solve problems in fields ranging from cybersecurity to civil engineering. In 2012, Emily's team was awarded as one of the top 15 teams in the nation a Lemelson MIT InvenTeam grant. Her team is developing the Cluck Bucket, a solar egg incubator for Uganda, and they have presented their prototype at MIT for the Eureka Fest Invention Festival, as well as at the National Collegiate Inventor and Innovator Alliance conference. Emily also engineers bright fluorescent proteins at Stanford University's Department of Bioengineering, which may allow researchers to investigate diseases at the molecular level. In her spare time, Emily enjoys singing, dancing, and cooking. Next year, she is attending Harvard College, where she is interested in studying bioengineering and computer science. Welcome, Emily.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm so honored to be able to speak to everybody here today. And I'd like to start off by asking everybody a question. So, do you view yourself as an inventor? If you do, could you please raise your hand? Okay, cool. So I can make out some hands in the audience, but I hope that by the end of Gun Engineering Night, you will all be able to see the inventive mentality within you. So next slide. So I always like to think if you give a man an egg, you feed him for a day. But next slide, if you give a man an incubator, you feed him for a lifetime. So during my sophomore year, I gathered a group of classmates in my living room. And at that time, we didn't know exactly what we were going to do, but we knew what we wanted to do. And what we wanted to do was create something in order to help the world's poorest people. So these are people living in developing nations who make less than $2 a day. When doing research, we found that current organizations donate chickens and eggs to these communities as a source of nutrition. But the problem is that this donations process isn't very sustainable and relies on constant external intervention. So we wanted to create something that could allow the people to provide for themselves. And that's how the idea of the Cluck Bucket was born. Next slide, please. So I organized a team, and we were awarded a $10,000 Lemelson MIT Invent Team grant in order to engineer the Cluck Bucket, which is a solar egg incubator for developing nations. So the Lemelson MIT Invent Teams initiative awards 15 high school teams across the nation each year to receive grants in order to carry out their ideas into reality. And when we found out that we received the grant, we were just so excited and so happy. So the Cluck Bucket can be used in Uganda for students and teachers to hatch eggs in order to provide income for their families through small-scale poultry farming. And during the engineering process, we try to think from the perspective of the end users, so the students and teachers in Uganda. So next slide, please. So we asked ourselves a lot of questions the whole time. What would happen to the eggs if there was no sunshine available? Would the materials be cost-effective? Would the students even want to use the incubator? And the whole time, we spent the year in a garage. We were typing lines of code. We were taking apart egg turners in order to explore egg rotation. And we were trying to troubleshoot the broken temperature and humidity sensors. And at the end of that year, we were selected to present on stage at MIT at the Lemelson MIT Eureka Fest Invention Festival. Next slide, please. So here's us presenting at MIT. And at Eureka Fest, I just entered in this community where ingenuity and creativity was celebrated. And I was surrounded by so many people who were just so passionate about what they were building, and they wanted to create things in order to improve the lives of others. And it was just so inspiring when I realized that the magic of Eureka Fest was in that we had an opportunity to collaborate with both creative and compassionate individuals. So actually, on the first day of Eureka Fest, we were asked the same question that I asked you guys today. Are you an inventor? And to my surprise, at this invention festival, most people did not raise up their hands. But at the end of Eureka Fest, when asked the same question, almost all the hands were raised up in the air. And that's when I realized that I too am an inventor. And an inventor is just someone who's willing to think creatively, someone who's eager to tackle societal challenges. That's all an inventor is. Next slide, please. So what I realized after Eureka Fest was that we are all capable of being inventors. Next slide, please. And so I carried on this spirit when creating my club, Research, Science, and Invention Club. And what's unique about RSI Club is that every student is given an opportunity to initiate their own projects or join in on an existing project, no matter what prior experience they may have in engineering. And we also participate in the Technology Student Association's Teams Competition, where basically we explore a new area in engineering each year. So during my sophomore year, we looked into bioengineering and how we can design and build new prosthetics. Last year, we looked into how to engineer a safer cyberspace. And this year, we're diving into civil engineering and looking at how we can design future cities to be more eco-friendly. And two of our teams have actually qualified nationals where they will be representing California at the national level again this summer. So next slide, please. So in conclusion, we need to stop limiting ourselves. We need to stop telling ourselves that scientists, engineers, inventors, and entrepreneurs are these mad scientists who lock themselves in their basements, reading huge textbooks while mold and bacteria are growing around them in their basements. That's just not true. We are all capable of creating something, and it doesn't have to be something big. It could be finding a solution to something which bothers us in our everyday lives. Or it could be designing something in order to try to improve the lives of people in developing nations. Whatever it is, we can create something, and we are all inventors. So let's show the world what we can build. Thank you.
Next up will be Nick Sturiale, who is an entrepreneur for 12 years and a venture capitalist for 14. Welcome, Mr. Sturiale.
Good evening. I guess I'm the resident over 40 speaker. I'm actually a graduate of the school, class of 1982. Usually when I say that, people said, was the school open in 82? I didn't know that. So, I didn't prepare any slides. You'll thank me for it later. So what do? I'm a venture capitalist. I'm one of the people, either on Sand Hill Road or in Palo Alto, that is literally looking for the slightly older version of you. Because we want to fund you. We want to give you money. We want to enable you to create something out of whole cloth. You are in the epicenter of where companies are born. And I would submit to you, you're in the epicenter where an industry like mine wants to take the most risk imaginable. Nowhere else in the world, really, where people in their teens can get funded to start companies, to build something interesting, and to have autonomy and control over their own life. So what do I do all day? I literally look through business plans. I meet with people like you. I am searching for the talent that is going to create the next great company. And you hear about Snapchat, you hear about Tumblr, you hear about all the great consumer companies. That's just one slice of it. There's an enormous number of interesting companies going on in all other industries, and they are principally started by engineers. The engineers are the coin of the realm. That's what the investors want to fund. So I'm here to give you money. That is the message. And I say that somewhat facetiously, but not really. Meaning, for those of you that are interested in engineering as a career, here's what I urge you to do. Find something, one, pursue it with all your tenacity and endeavor to be very good at it. Two, find something in the world or in your personal life that bugs you and then solve it with a product that you design of your own accord. I think the most wonderful job is the one that you create yourself. Not trying to go work for another company, trying to find a career in a particular industry, but find something that you love more than anything and try to create a job around that. And hopefully, usually when you're solving a problem that bugs you, it turns out it bugs a lot of other people. And you can turn that into a product. And then guys like me step in and give you money, and off we go. And so I love this night because I think you can't have what Zuckerberg said is absolutely true. There are just not enough great engineers. And I'm telling you, if you don't want to work at Facebook or Tumblr or any of the cool companies that are in the Valley or all over the Valley, you come to somebody like me, and it doesn't take a lot to get started. I had just one quick story and then I'll go. I had 3 gentlemen come into my office in 2004. They had an idea to build a search engine to look at what's called machine data, which is the data that the computer spits out. I hadn't seen anything like it. They hung out in my office for 6 months. We funded them. It's now a company called Splunk, which, if you don't know about it, was one of the most successful IPOs 2 years ago. It's now worth over $7 billion and employs over 1,500 people, and we're hiring about 100 people a quarter now. And that from 3 people in my office 10 years ago. So the power here to create something magical and special is in your hands. And there's a whole industry out there that wants you to do it because they will back you to the hilt and support you in any way, shape they can. And by the way, failure is a good thing. We love it here in the Valley because it's through failure that you create success. And in fact, as a VC, I'm happy when somebody's had 2 or 3 failures before they come see me because that means they learned on somebody else's nickel. But we love it. We don't look down on it, we embrace failure. And I think that's what makes the Valley particularly unique as a culture. And so, thank you. And if anyone has an idea for a company and wants to talk to me, I'll be out and back here.
We have Sebastian Bertsch, who has spent his time since Gunn doing many different things, as many as possible. After a stint studying blacksmithing and educational theory, he worked for Tech Shop, opening new shop locations, and currently designs and fabricates hardware for a radar imaging company. Other jobs include fabricating farm equipment, coaching high school robotics teams, demonstrating 19th century technology at museums, working in a sheet metal factory, and creating assemblage sculpture for a gallery in San Francisco. He invests his spare time planting fruit trees and exploring the West on motorcycle. Welcome, Sebastian.
So I didn't see what happened, but it sounded funny. Okay, cool. Good joke. Sonic screwdriver. Howdy. So I'm going to break form a little bit and focus a little bit more on, well, not so much on the engineering that I'm doing, but more the engineering that I'm inspired by. But before we get into the hippie stuff, I have to get my street cred, right? So currently I'm doing radar systems. We design object detection systems and ground mapping. So one of our systems is about to be used out in the Pacific. We're looking for tuna poachers and other fishing boats out near Palau, looking for poaching. The other system is a ground mapping system. We can fly our plane over and make really hyper-detailed images of what's down there. That's a radar image, and we'll tell you basically anything that's below you. As you might have heard, I used to do some weirder stuff, older engineering. There's a sawmill I used to run, a little bit different. So that was a water-powered at a museum. We used to cut all the lumber. Fascinating machine, the pinnacle of technology in the 1820s. Hey, come on. Sonic screwdriver, there we go. That water wheel that you see down at the bottom, that thing made all of 17 horsepower, 2 4-foot diameter reaction wheels. Makes you appreciate what you have underneath the bonnet of your car. They're interesting technologies. It has interesting engineering that goes into it. But what really inspires me in engineering is not the products that are made, but the solutions that they solve. So my motivation in engineering is what can it actually solve for you? Therefore, my motivation, I guess, is what I'm afraid of. And right now, I'm afraid of some of these ecological issues that we're faced with. That there at the bottom, that white you see, used to be the Owens Lake until Los Angeles put a straw into it. And 25 years later, it was empty. Similarly, you've probably seen this before, the massive dead zones in the Gulf caused by nitrogen runoff and other fertilizer and sediment and pesticide coming from our agricultural system and the damage that it is causing. Just here locally, this summer, it's expected that, thank you. It's expected that 600,000 acres of farmland won't get planted. There's not the water. And these are all massive issues. And they're political issues and they're social issues to be sure, but they're also engineering opportunities. And this is one right here. That's the Loess Valley. Well, it was the Loess Valley in the early 90s. It's an area in China about the size of France. And it was severely degraded from overlogging, over excessive agriculture, overgrazing, causing massive issues, soil erosion, dust storms, silting of the lower rivers, and a lack of ability to support the people that were living there. In the early 90s, a commitment was made that the area was going to be restored. And I see this as a massive engineering challenge. They decided that the ecology had to be fixed. And they went in, to be sure, it's hydrology, it's botany, it's ecology, it's a lot of sciences, but engineering is the method that blended these all together. And you can see the results. What it was in the early 90s, after 3 years of work, and about 10 years later, the area had been transformed. The World Bank estimates that 3 million people were lifted out of poverty by the opportunities created by this restoration. And you might not think it's engineering, but think of the hydrology, the soil science. Think about the structural engineering of how one redevelops an ecosystem. This is the projects that inspire me. Now this is a little bit big, so we can talk a little bit smaller here. So let's talk about poop. Now I have your attention. Okay. Sorry for the small pictures, but it was an older project. This is a school down in the Caribbean, Antigua. They had a problem with their septic. Where do you run the waste now that you have a big school? You can't put it into the ocean. With this, they ran the effluent out into these concrete containers, which then filled with coral and planted with native species that like water and like nutrients. 3 months later, and 3 years later, they're growing bananas in that. Amazing engineering solution. You have a problem, and they solve it, and they do it in a brilliant way. What problem? What waste? They turn it into a resource. That's the engineering that inspires me. My concern is that in many places, and I'm glad to hear San Diego's doing it differently, engineering is thought of as this. It is a field, a study. It is that area that you major in. And I think that's horribly wrong. I think engineering is this method that we can tie together all of these sciences. It's this methodology for analyzing problems and finding solutions. And it doesn't matter where that is, if that's in the tech company or in the car company or trying to solve these ecological issues. So what inspires me about engineering is that all of these ecological issues, these environmental crises, are all opportunities. They're all opportunities to apply our thinking and reach beautiful, effective engineering solutions. That's what inspires me about engineering.
All right, up next we have Neel Guha, who is a senior at Gunn High School and is interested in the intersection of computer science and policy. He has spent 2 summers interning at the Stanford Mobile Social Lab and has created medtree.stanford.edu, a specialized search engine for medical professionals, and Spywatch, a Chrome privacy extension. He has 4 publications covering topics in information retrieval and online privacy. Next year, he will be studying computer science at Stanford. Welcome, Neel.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay, great. I'm Neel. I'm a senior at Gunn. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Especially thank you to Mr. Paley. I'm going to be talking about Spywatch, which is a Chrome browser extension I created, and how it attempts to increase transparency in online browsing for users. So what are cookies? A cookie is essentially a small tracker that's sometimes created when you visit a website. They're stored in the browser, and they often contain identifying information about you. Now, some cookies are fantastic. Cookies are what allow you to repeatedly open up your Gmail account without having to constantly re-enter your username and your password. But unfortunately, some cookies can also be used by advertisers to track and essentially spy on you. Here's one example. This is the homepage of the New York Times, nytimes.com, and you'll see circled in red are advertisements. Now, the way these advertisements works is that they're actually served directly by third-party advertising networks and not the New York Times. A prominent example of such an advertising network is DoubleClick, which is actually owned by Google. Now, when a user visits a page like this, there's a complex series of mechanisms, but the end result is that this advertising network now knows the user has visited this page. Of course, this brings about the question, when I'm visiting and when I'm reading a page online on the web, how many other people actually know I saw that page? And this was the incentive to create Spywatch. So just some background information. I created Spywatch last spring. It's a Chrome browser extension, and it seeks to allow users to know who is tracking them online and what these third-party trackers know about the user. So let's go back to the homepage of the New York Times. Let's say I went to nytimes.com and opened up Spywatch, and this is what Spywatch tells me about the page. On nytimes.com, there are 10 other third-party sites that know I've visited. Now, how many of you have heard of, I think it's krxd.net? I'm assuming not a lot of you, but that doesn't really matter because krxd.net has heard of you and it just found out that you visited nytimes.com. Now, of course, this brings about the question, krxd.net and DoubleClick know I visited this page, but what other pages do they know I've visited? And SpyWatch allows users to see this information. So this is some data collected over the course of 2 months. And SpyWatch is essentially telling me that DoubleClick knows I visited almost 1,200 different pages across 200 sites, or in other words, almost 11% of my entire browsing. Further, if SpyWatch knows which are the pages DoubleClick knows I've visited, and in the app you can scroll down and you'll find DoubleClick knows I've visited articles from the New York Times, soccer reports from ESPN, even medical info pages on certain medical sites. Now, researchers have determined that by looking at the pages a person browses online, you can actually figure out some very intimate details about them. You can figure out their age, their gender, their economic status, their location, even their sexual orientation. Now, none of this is information that I'm actually volunteering online, but it's information that third parties have collected because they're looking at the pages I'm looking at and they're able to build a profile of who I am. Now, this is another neat thing SpyWatch can show me. It turns out that in those 2.5 months, I was watched by almost 1,200 different third-party sites. Now, we often think that, we often hear or heard are told to be careful about what we post on Facebook and what we post on social networks. And we often have the perception that when we're looking online for information, when we're browsing, it's more private, it's more personal. And this goes to show that the notion of privacy online is almost non-existent. Whenever you look at a page, whenever you look at a website, there's almost always at least one person out there who knows you did that. So what can you do about this? Hope isn't lost. There are a bunch of things you can do if you want to maintain your privacy. There are several extensions out there for Chrome and Firefox, such as Do Not Track Me or Ghostery. And these extensions actually allow you to block third-party cookies and help you maintain your privacy. But the second and the most important thing you can do is to increase awareness. The main problem this particular issue is facing is that almost no one knows it's happening. No one knows this level of tracking is happening and no one knows the scope. And if you can increase awareness, if you can tell your friends, tell your families, tell anyone who will listen, then hopefully we can have a more informed public. And a more informed public means that we can have more substantive progress on the policy or legal level, and we can have a serious debate in our society about how much we value privacy in the online digital age. Thank you. Here's the link for SpyWatch if any of you are interested.
Thank you, Neel. Next up is Anand Gupta, who is the founder of Perceptus Systems, a project backed by the Thiel Fellowship in its quest to revolutionize cancer diagnostics through imaging. He is on a leave of absence from Harvard University, where he studied molecular and cell biology. In the last few years, Anand has worked in a variety of industries, from cloud computing to microscopy to biotechnology. He has authored 2 US patents in operating system technology through work at Sun Microsystems and Amazon.com, and looks forward to further advancing work at the intersection of biology and software. Anand graduated from Gunn High in 2010, having been a member of the Gunn robotics team and disciple of Johua Paley. Perceptus, his company, is building tools to augment the analytical power of pathologists in the digital age by combining massively scalable cloud computing with the expertise of human pathologists. He is working to enhance discovery and diagnoses of cancer. Please welcome Anand.
Hi. With such a long bio, I probably should justify it a little bit. So, actually, I didn't even write that, but that's okay. So I'll say, with such a long bio, I'm curing cancer, or at least I'm trying. So I've got a small company, 3 men, and what we do is we're building cancer diagnostics. It's called Iris now, it's not called Perceptus, but that's okay. And we've got a really clever way to do it that I think is kind of strange because it combines a lot of different things. You've heard of lots of different types of engineering and science and stuff tonight, and I think you'll see it come together in a neat way here. So, well, let's start with talking through it. So let's see. All right, so what we do is we develop new cancer diagnostics. But to do that, I spent the last 3 years away from Harvard just understanding what it is to diagnose cancer and what it is to treat cancer. This is the scariest disease we face. It's painful, there's so much suffering, but what you have to understand about cancer is that there's actually a pretty well-defined process behind how we diagnose and treat it. So if you're a patient who they think has cancer, you show up in your clinic and they take a biopsy. So they take a teeny piece of what they think the cancer is, and it goes before a pathologist. And the pathologist is responsible for figuring out what kind of cancer it is, if it's not cancer, how it will progress. And they feed that information to an oncologist. An oncologist is the guy who actually treats you. So you interface with the oncologist, and the oncologist is responsible for figuring out from that report that the pathologist gives them how to treat you. And the interesting thing with cancer is, well, we're good at finding cancer, but we're not really good at figuring out how to treat it. We have lots of treatment options, but it's really difficult for us to say, okay, you have this type of cancer, this is the preferred treatment course. So what our company does, what Iris does is we try to match patients and their cancers with treatments. And we do it in a way that is pure software. And I think that's the exciting part here. So we fight cancer. We try to match these kind of complex diseases to specific treatments that an oncologist can give you that will work for you. Every cancer is different. They're kind of mixed within cancers, and there's a lot of complexity, so we try to resolve that kind of ambiguity around treatment. So how do we do it? Well, if we can go. So when you go in and you get that biopsy done, this is what the pathologists and oncologists are dealing with. They're looking at microscopic images of cells, and you can see this is just a chunk of a biopsy, just a ton of these cancerous or precancerous or some kind of cells that need to be treated. And actually what you're looking at is 2 different types of cancers, and one actually needs a very aggressive treatment and one doesn't. And the job of the oncologist is to figure out which of these types of tumors goes with which treatment. And what we do is we help that. So we figured out that if you analyze these images, these biopsies, these microscopic slides, what we can do is we can actually find patterns that correlate with specific treatments and specific risk profiles, and we can specify, hey, this is the treatment we should provide to this patient. And we can do that just using some very clever computer vision and computer algorithms. It's just about figuring out that there's biology hidden in that tissue. And if I understand a little bit about the biology, and I kind of teach a computer a little bit about the biology, I can start to find the patterns in it. So what we've built is actually pretty exciting because it kind of combines this knowledge of biology, which is something I studied at school, and also this kind of engineering, this software piece that I'd been working on for many years. And we've come together and we said, look, every single cancer that is ever going to be diagnosed, there's a biopsy for that. They image it, and you get, whether it's esophageal cancer or breast cancer, we can analyze those slides and we can figure out what kind of treatment will go for each of these types of cancers. And so what we figure is if we go through enough of this tissue, we'll find the patterns that go with each different treatment, and we can treat patients better so they actually survive. And survive in a way that's not painful. You know, cancer is scary because it's just uncertain. And I think that's the big mission I'm out to solve. Now, that sounds all grand and good, and I've been working on this for many years, and I think there are many years of this to come, but the thing I want to share with you is not strictly that you can cure cancer. You can do that, and I think this is the thing that drives me. But the thing that makes that possible is not just computers or software or, you know, some basic science or something. It's just that I'm very comfortable now, after many years, just talking to all the right people here, talking to the people from the scientists to the engineers to the people who are doing the treatment, to the patients, and making sure that I can speak all those languages. And that's really what engineering is, right? Engineering is not plugging numbers into a computer. It's being able to look at a problem like cancer and say, these are all the pieces of it, here's how we're going to put them together, and here's how we're actually going to solve cancer. So that's what I do. Iris is a thing that we've been working on it for a couple of years, and we have many years to go, and I hope you'll ask me some questions after, but thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up is Nitsan Shai, who is an electrical and computer engineering major at Carnegie Mellon University. He graduated from Gunn High School in 2012, where he mainly focused on computer science, math, and physics. Although just a freshman, Nitsan is already very involved on campus. He is a part of the all-university orchestra, the robotics club, and the academic development staff. Please welcome Nitsan.
Are we good? Cool. Hey guys. Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Before I start, I'd like the house lights on, if that's possible. Is that possible? Good. Okay, now everyone stand up. Stand up. Take a stretch. Raise your hands. Turn to your left, turn to your right. Say hi to the person next to you if you don't know them. Okay. Was that a good break? Okay, now sit down. Okay, so my name is Nitsan, as you heard in the introduction earlier. I graduated from here in 2012, and I'm now at Carnegie Mellon University. I just finished my second year, and I'm, as you probably heard, I'm rather involved on campus. So sometimes you see me doing this, and even sometimes you see me doing this. There we go. But when people ask me what I'm doing, I major in electrical and computer engineering, and I'm also pursuing a minor in computer science and a minor in music. So when people ask me what I'm doing, usually when I tell them that this is what they think. But really, most of the time, it looks like this, or sometimes even like that, as you may have heard in other presentations. So my talk today is going to be a little broad because I'm going to be talking about 3 different experiences that are in 3 very different topics. But hopefully you'll get the same conclusion that you may have heard in the previous talks and from my experience that engineering is kind of everywhere. So firstly, I'll talk about my past summer, which I spent in Boston. I worked at a small startup called Kairos, which work with healthcare data. And the goal of Kairos and the product they work on, which is called Provider Match, the goal of this product is to match patients to the right doctors. So currently, what happens when you call a large hospital network is the person that answers your phone has to go through a binder about this tall to find a doctor for you. And most of the time, it's a random guess. So this product, the idea is that you search for your condition, and a list of doctors is pulled up based on their research experience, clinical experience, their grants, their location, their availability. And then the call center agent, right then and there, can book you to that doctor. This reduces the wait time of patients by almost 50%, which is actually, marginal. Yeah, so I actually got to start this product last summer with them, and then I actually got to pilot it in a hospital network in Ohio and got to see results of patients having reduced wait time in hospitals, increasing their ability to hold more patients. Next, I'll talk about what I did this past semester. I took 2 different classes that were very project-based. One of them was called Embedded Systems Engineering. It was about building any consumer electronic you can think of with small computers. So we talked about software and hardware design, how to integrate the two, and how to build products that are robust and safe and well-designed. So some of the projects I worked on were programming a windshield wiper, which was a very early project. Next, we programmed a stopwatch, which is harder than you might think. And one of the last projects was simulating what you would call a multitasking operating system, which is just big words for how does your computer run a lot of things at once. And the last project, my final project in that class, which was of my choice, was a Morse code decoder, which basically means that there was a button. We built a little module with a button, and you'd press the button with Morse code, and it would display the letters that you type in. which was a lot of fun, and it actually worked really well. So that was one of my classes. My second class that I really enjoyed this past semester is called Natural Language Processing, which is what it sounds like. It's processing natural language, like English, Chinese, German, Swiss German, any language you can think of. And the idea of natural language processing is to build models that model languages, and use these models to make assumptions and other predictions. And this sounds a little out of range for most of us, but really we use this stuff every day. Stuff like translation, like automated translation, question answering and question generating based on articles, conversational agents like HAL, and summarizing and classifying articles and documents like Wikipedia, and being able to programmatically tell what they are about. So some companies that use this, that you know a lot about, Google, obviously Google translates to almost any language these days. Siri with speech processing, and then being able to tell you or give information to you based on what you asked it to do. And then all three of these are search engines, which really take your request and give you back what you want, which is a lot, which sounds simple, but is much harder than it looks. And just to tie it full circle, Kairos, which I talked about earlier, also uses natural language processing in order to determine which doctor is right for the right patient, and also which patient is for the right doctor. So, conclusions. You probably came up with a few conclusions yourself, but besides, these are my conclusions. Besides the fact that this is really cool, I got to work with amazing people every step along the way in everything I've told you, which is possibly the most important part of all of this. You get to, as you heard in the other talks, you get to help others with amazing innovations, with things that have thought to have been impossible in the past. And just like you saw in every presentation today, you get to work in any industry you want. And not only that, you have to learn about the industry you're working on besides what we call engineering. So this was really quick. So if you have more questions for me after this, please approach me after. I'll be around. And thank you.
Kessler, who graduated from Gunn in 2004. And probably went off to college in upstate New York at RPI. Wisely, he moved back to the Bay Area, where he now works for, where he worked for Sun and then LinkedIn. Please, everyone, welcome Eagle.
Hi. So this is Gunn Engineering Night. I'm a software engineer at LinkedIn, and kind of following on a theme that's been repeated a bunch of times tonight, I'm going to try to talk about why I really like engineering by talking a bit about what it is that I do at LinkedIn. So as our wonderful MC said, I'm Eagle Kessler. I graduated from Gunn in 2004, which apparently makes me among the older people speaking here tonight. I went to college. I worked briefly at Sun, which was wonderful, but then it got bought by Oracle. I'm sorry to the person who worked at Oracle in the previous speakers, but I did not want to work there. And I'm now employed by LinkedIn. You can tell, I'm wearing their shirt. I vaguely assume that most people have heard of LinkedIn. We're kind of the also-ran behind Google Plus and Facebook in the social networking space. Some people put Twitter in there. But we have a lot of very interesting engineering problems, and I get to work on some of them. So I write code, I build features. When you use LinkedIn.com, if you use LinkedIn.com, you are using code that I wrote, that I debugged, that I put bugs into. It's probably my fault. And our official tagline is that I create opportunity for everyone in the world, which sounds very nice. The way that I do that is by building better systems, by analyzing more data better. Humans, it turns out, are really bad at analyzing data. Computers, once you teach them what to do, are much better. We have a lot of data. We analyze a lot of it. We try to make your life easier, but so that you don't have to analyze that data. And we want to find and present the most relevant things to you, whether that's news articles or jobs or recruiters or whatever. The reason I like it, we get to solve really interesting problems. We get to say we have, through various methods, most of the news articles that are published on the internet. When you log into LinkedIn and you see your homepage, we need to find the 3 most relevant of those articles and put them up for you to look at and say, these are the 3 articles that you should read. And we hope we're right. And we're constantly refining the algorithms that do that for us. We get to solve interesting problems of scale. LinkedIn now has 300 million members, and we want to be able to tell you how far away you are, right? 6 degrees of separation, et cetera, quickly, very, very quickly. And that's difficult. How do we build a system that can do that? How do we store that data so that we can access all of it within milliseconds? Stuff like that. We solve interesting problems in terms of performance. If our website took 10 seconds to load, you would not use it. We want it to be faster. How do we constantly make these things faster? And we get to solve them with very interesting people. A year ago when I gave this presentation, I said I get to solve these problems with people who are much, much smarter than me, and I get to learn a lot. That is still true. However, in that year, I have started to become one of those people who gets to teach other people from my previous failures. And that is awesome too. I get to teach people, I get to watch people learn, I get to be a mentor to people, and that is amazing. And something that has really been coming up repeatedly is that this is engineering. This is a way of looking at the world that it's constantly finding things that could be better, breaking them down into why they are not as good as they could be, figuring out how to make individual pieces better, understanding the system as a whole so that you can build that up into something that improves the world for 1 person, for 10 people, for 300 million people. And I really love doing that. I think that's the end. Thank you.
At GetAround, the peer-to-peer car-sharing company where he has worked for the past 3 years. Before starting GetAround, Elliot has been an engineer and hacker for the last decade, including a 4-year stint at Google, where he has worked primarily on the Street View team as Google's youngest engineer. He has been an iPhone developer since the iPhone was first released, active both in jailbreak community, where he helped build many of the iPhone's jailbreak prior to the release of the App Store, and in the larger development community. His app, Archers, made it onto the top 3 in the App Store. Welcome, Elliot.
All right, I guess this is working. Excellent. All right, so I'm here to talk about engineering, and I was a Gunn student and all of that, but I actually want to talk to you about my startup, because that's what I've been spending all my time for the last, actually that bio's 0, so no, it's now 4 years instead of 3. So let's see if this one works. Perfect. So I graduated from Gunn in 2008. I've done a couple of worked at a couple of different places. I do want to point out, let's see. So for all of you that haven't graduated yet from Gunn, pay attention to all the people nearby, and also pay attention to all the people who are like several years ahead of you and behind you. I can't begin to tell you how many people I've met in the startup community, in people off the street, folks I worked with at Google who were Gunn graduates. It's actually amazing how many places we've been able to like get our tendrils into. So I founded this company back in 2009 called GetAround. So I want to talk to you about a particular problem that actually exists in society today, and then I'll tell you why I found this company, but it should become really clear. There's a really big problem in transportation right now, and it exists across a number of different sectors, but it's basically around owning a vehicle, which is what transportation used to look like. Now we have more cars on the road today than licensed drivers by a fair margin. There are a huge number of people who don't even own cars. And the average car that sits there, which is like your second biggest capital asset as a person who owns a car and a home, is sitting there losing all its value every year. In fact, the biggest loss of value on your car has nothing to do with mileage or anything. It's just because the next year of the car comes out. So if you have 2013, the 14 comes out, you lose 20% of your value. You can't get it back. It's a really big economic problem, actually. And this is why transportation, if you look at technology startups in the last few years, have started to look at transportation. It's because of this problem. And in fact, millennials, which is our generation, we don't buy cars anymore. 35% fewer cars, lots and lots more people, and this trend is increasing over time. So the guys who are just graduating and going to college now are buying even fewer cars. Next slide. So it's a big economic opportunity. You look at the automotive market, which is a $2 trillion industry in the US, and you look at the rental car market, which is $24 billion. It's not really a replacement for car ownership, but there is something that is a replacement for car ownership. We call it car sharing. It's a little like a company like Zipcar, where you can rent a car by the hour, on the hour. So GetAround launched its product offering. We call it GetAround Instant in 2013. It's been around for a little over a year now. So here's how it works. And this is the company that we're creating. It's, you go on your phone, you look for cars around you. You look for a car that you want. Say it's a Tesla Model S. We have several of those in our system, by the way. And you go on and you rent it instantly for that moment. We actually run your driver record online immediately and tell you exactly what's going on, whether or not we can insure you. We provide the insurance. Everything just works seamlessly. You get in the car, drive it around, and then return the car, and you've rented your vehicle. You don't need a car anymore. You can use somebody else's. And where these cars come from is actually people make money off their car. So all those people who are sitting on a car that's losing money every year can actually rent it out, somewhere between $600 to $800 a month. I rent out my Mini Cooper in San Francisco. It makes about $1,000 right now. It's pretty awesome. So I'm actually making real money. So here's how it actually works. We have a piece of hardware in the vehicle, we call it the GetAround Connect. It basically allows your car to talk to the internet. This is actually a big trend in automotive right now, as new vehicles have a cell phone modem in it. So we do our own hardware and allow you to connect the car directly into our cloud, basically, with a little piece of hardware, so you don't have to wait and buy the 2015 model. It finally supports this. So as the owner, you rent it out. So you set the prices, we provide insurance, you get 60%. It's pretty straightforward. And the cool thing about this, I mean, other than the fact that it does a lot of things, we're about 25 people and half of it is technical, doing like everything from iPhone to our own hardware. But about the other half is we passed laws in 3 different states and provide insurance, did a big deal with an insurance carrier. I think the really interesting thing is that it's actually working. Next slide. So we've grown more than 12x in San Francisco. In the San Francisco market, we're live in 5 markets. There's pretty much a car on every block now, and we're trying to grow at least double in the next 6 months as well. So it's going to be pretty awesome. And then from there, we're going into a whole bunch of different cities. So stay tuned. We'll probably have it down here and then in all of your favorite other cities across the US. So that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, next we have Nate Levine, who is a co-founder of OpenGov as well. This is a software company that has built the premier web-based financial transparency and business intelligence platform for governments. Nate has postponed completion of his degree at Stanford and was named to the 2014 Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Welcome, Nate.
Hi. Wow, it's loud. So I graduated Gunn in 2009, and when I graduated, I went down the road to Stanford, and I was there for about 2 years studying electrical engineering and computer science. And after those 2 years, I actually left to start OpenGov. And if you heard this talk last year, we were called Delphi at that time, but same company, same idea. So what do we do at OpenGov? Well, we've built a platform that governments across the country are using to access, analyze, and share, communicate all of their financial information. So we're helping governments make smarter decisions with data, and we're promoting transparency around government spending. So I want to tell a little story about how we started working on this. When I was at Stanford, there we go. When I was at Stanford, I was working with some of my classmates on a little side project. We had partnered with some parts of the state of California, and we were trying to help them make some policy recommendations. This was back in 2010, and people who followed the news back then, the state didn't really have a lot of money. They were actually kind of running out. So we thought, hey, let's try and help them make some smarter decisions around how they're spending. And we thought the best way to start with that would be to go and figure out where they're spending their money and how it's being spent. So we actually sent a letter to the governor's office, and we said, hey, can you send us the bank statement, the bank account for the state of California? And they wrote us back and they said, no, we're not going to give that to you. It wasn't a huge surprise. I mean, it's public information, but we weren't really expecting to get it. But what was surprising is the reason why we couldn't get that information. It wasn't because they were corrupt. It wasn't because they didn't want to give it to us. It was because they couldn't get us that information. The data that we needed was stored across probably about a dozen to 24 different systems, most of them about 20 to 30 years old. These are command line interfaces. They use punch cards in some parts of the state still. So really, really old technology. And every agency and department, they use different organizational systems and different schemes and formats. So pulling that together into one place is really difficult. And the state actually estimated that it would have cost them about $7 million to get us that information. That's a really big number, and that's pretty bad, right? I mean, it's one of the 10th largest economies in the world, and they don't have that information. The governor doesn't have that data. He can't see where they're spending money. So our solution to that is to build a platform. We built a web-based platform and some very powerful technology that allows governments to pull all of that information into one central place. And we clean it for them, and we process it for them. And we make it so that everybody, whether you're a low-level staff member, an executive, an elected official, or a citizen, a resident, everybody has instant access to all of this data right at their fingertips. And it turns out it's pretty hard to do that. As I said, there's a lot of cleaning that has to go into that. There's a lot of natural language processing. Somebody was talking about that earlier. That goes into figuring out how do we take this data in its current form and turn it into something that's readable and useful to the average person. But what we've built out is a platform where you can go in and find exactly what you want to see very quickly. If you want to see how much your local city's spending to upgrade its police cars, you can see that. If you want to see how much they're spending to pave roads, you have that information right there. It's been going very well. When I was on this stage a year ago, we were in about 5 governments. As of this week, we're in 96 in 18 states, targeting to be in about 250 by the end of the year. A wide range of governments using the platform. City of Palo Alto uses OpenGov. Caltrain is an interesting example of a government using the OpenGov platform. They were given about $1 billion by the state of California to upgrade the Peninsula rail corridor in preparation for high-speed rail. And they're using our platform to manage and track all of that money. So a lot of use cases for this that we're seeing. This is the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti. This is him using the OpenGov platform to present his budget. So this has become a very powerful and easy way for governments to communicate some very complex concepts around finances, where money is going, where it's coming from, why it's being spent on the things it's being spent on. So that's one example of a government we're working with, the City of Los Angeles. As I said, there's a lot around the country that are getting a tremendous amount of value from this. And we're hearing, as an example from some governments using this, that a report that might have traditionally taken about a week to run, they can do in about 2 minutes using OpenGov. So that's what we like to hear. That's pretty exciting. So where do we go with this? So we've built out this platform, and we have a lot of governments on it, using it, and we're collecting all that data and cleaning it. And what that means is that as a company, we're sitting on the world's largest repository of government financial information. particularly organized government financial information. And what we can do with that, well, the possibilities are almost endless, but one of the things we're most excited about is comparisons. We want to build a network of governments and give them all the capability to learn from each other, figure out what works, what doesn't work. Is spending on this program increasing or getting better results out of education? Is it reducing crime? So you can drive some best practices there and enable a type of communication that's really never been possible before. So that's what we're doing at OpenGov, and thank you so much.
Up next is Susan Nitta, who is a mechanical engineering student at Stanford University. She graduated from Gunn in 2011 and was part of the Gunn robotics team and Gunn Girls Tech Club. Since her time at Gunn, she has joined the Stanford Solar Car team and helped to start and mentor a robotics team at Crystal Springs Upland School. Susan has also studied and interned in Germany and continues to play violin in various groups at Stanford. Please welcome Susan.
Hi, my name is Susan Nitta, as the MC said. Let's see. All right. So as a mechanical engineer, I've been able to take part of several projects. Here's a couple highlights. I worked at Will Garage one summer as part of robot development and worked on their platform bot. I also worked in Germany on a disaster relief robot, as well as a mechatronic duck, and I work on the solar car team at Stanford. All right, other things I do. I also play violin in several different groups. I'm also a residential assistant in an all-freshman dorm. I have 100 freshmen. And I also mentor a robotics team at Crystal Springs Upland School. So the interesting thing is working with those kids, working with the Crystal Springs students has brought me back to where I started engineering, which is with the Gunn robotics team. So I started the Gunn robotics team as a sophomore with zero engineering background and no experience whatsoever. I was terrified of hand drills, and whenever I walked into the shop, I had no idea what anyone was talking about. But over the next 2-3 years, I found my way around the shop, and I became co-captain of drivetrain, so I could build the thing I'm sitting on. So what happened between those 2 points? So the first thing that I learned was that people don't necessarily know as much as they seem to. It's really, really intimidating to go into an environment where people seem to know what they're talking about. But beyond the buzzwords and beyond the words that you don't know, there's not, basically the barrier to understanding isn't that high. Which leads me to my second point, which is ask questions. Asking questions works both ways. It works really well because people who know stuff really like talking about it, and then you also get to know what they know. So third thing is try something new. I tend to go towards experiences that I think will teach me the most, especially because I started with no understanding of what engineering was, but it seemed to be something interesting to me, so I thought, well, why not? It seems like I'd learn a lot from it, so I just went forth and dove in. But the important thing about that is to take responsibility. So that means taking your project from start to end and being able to get the most out of that. So one of the experiences that I've had that covered all of these 4 things recently was in somewhere where you wouldn't really expect it, which is in a class. So earlier this year, I took a manufacturing class, and usually this class covers the sort of things that I worked on in GRT. So how to use a mill, how to use a lathe, and how to go through an entire project using those processes. Go back. I had the experience of that in GRT, so I wanted to do something completely different, so I chose a fiberglass filing case. It was a very difficult process, and basically I had to make a a mold for the fiberglass, and that was completely out of pink foam and by hand sanding, and that took a very long time. And after that, I did a fiberglass layup on it. The middle picture is of the fiberglass layup itself. It's in a vacuum bag. And unfortunately, I didn't realize at that point that the little ridges that you can see in there actually collect resin and translate to hours on hours of sanding, which is shown in the last picture. So after that entire process, I was able to move forward and put in the hardware, as well as vinyl wrap it to make it look nice, and then do the entire interior. And what I ended up with was that. And the most notable thing about this is that nobody has ever tried to do a fiberglass violin, or any fiberglass project in the entire history of the class. The class is, 40 years old, maybe 80 students go into it every quarter, so that translates to about 240 students per year. Nobody's ever tried it, and even if they have, they haven't successfully seen it to the end. And in something like this, where we're talking about engineering, I think it's very important to realize that pushing the boundaries doesn't necessarily mean in the places that you think they'll be. So again, here are the things that I learned on GRT and things that I carry with me today as I explore engineering further. I actually have to run now, but here's my contact info if you have any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. All right, up next we have Ting-Ting Liu, who graduated from Gunn in 2011 and is currently studying biomedical and mechanical engineering at Harvard University. Since graduating, she's worked on multiple engineering projects, such as the development of wrist-worn wireless heart rate monitors for athletes and an integrated UV steam mat cleaner to combat skin-borne infections. In addition to her interest in engineering, Ting-Ting also has multiple years of experience with entrepreneurship, marketing, and business operations. She firmly believes it's possible to pursue both engineering and business, and would be happy to speak to anyone who is interested in the two. This summer, Ting-Ting will be joining the performance engineering team with the Adidas Group. Welcome, Ting-Ting.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. So there's some cheesy animation that we're just going to skip over. But hi, as some of you guys might remember, I graduated from Gunn High School as part of the class of 2011, and since then I've gone on to study biomedical engineering at Harvard University, where I'm really interested in how we can enhance human performance through technology. So here's kind of a timeline of my life. Here's me today, 21. And this would be my career at Gunn, my Gunn days. And it actually wasn't until about halfway through my days at Gunn that I became interested in engineering. It was the summer right before my junior year of high school. In fact, there was this whole long period of time before this moment where I wasn't really quite sure what being an engineer meant. I think, as Drew mentioned, I sort of had a stereotype that it was very left-brained and it kind of involved crunching out lots of numbers and doing math problems. And I wasn't really convinced that it was for me. So today I want to tell you a little bit about my aha moment and what defined my interest in engineering, and hopefully inspire you guys to look for your own aha moment. And then I also want to spend some time talking a little bit about the progress I've made since having this epiphany. So my defining moment. I've always had a passion for athletics. I played a lot of sports, some at Gunn, some on my own. I ran my first half marathon last semester, which is really cool. But I've also always loved math, science, and problem solving. And in 2008, I was able to find a fantastic intersection of these two passions in a Fast Company article. The article was called High-Tech Gear for Olympic Athletes, and it was given to me by my father, so thank you, Dad. And what this article detailed was all the new innovations that were coming out in the 2008 Olympic Summer Games. It was awesome. For example, it talked about the Adidas track spikes called the Lone Stars, and what these track spikes did was they took the force that's felt on the outer right side, the outer right edge of your track spike, and transfers it to the inner right edge so that you can push off and accelerate left into curves. And for a track runner, this is ingenious because a track runner never has to turn right. They only need to turn left, right? Because you always run the same direction around the track. So it made so much sense to me. And it was just, and there was an epiphany moment where I just realized people spend their whole life and career thinking of fantastic innovations such as this one. And that's what I wanted to be involved in. So since then, I've kind of pursued this interest through my engineering studies, as well as through past and present, through various projects. There was, ooh, it's going haywire on me. Okay, so this is just kind of an example of some of my past projects. But what I really want to highlight from this slide is that all these projects stem from problems, as we were saying. So they all kind of started off, here my team at MIT and I, unfortunately, it only says MIT in the title, but I'm mentioned in the article, which is cool. But basically what we did is we started off by listing a bunch of problems that we encountered in everyday life. And one of the big problems we noticed was that in the wrestling community, there's still this huge skin-borne infection phenomenon of staph infection and ringworms spreading through the wrestling mats or through the equipment. So we put our heads together and came up with a solution that involved an integrated UV steam cleaning system. Another, for example, is with the exoskeleton. So a lot of people, after going through injury and going through the rehabilitation process, they lose their full degree of motion. So they can't, their full range of motion, so they can't move as regularly as a regular human being. So what this exoskeleton does is it helps enhance the natural motion and augment it. So that's something I'm going to be working on this upcoming semester as well. And I want to take you through a specific example, which is the wireless heart rate monitor mentioned in the previous slide, just to kind of give you a scope of the kind of problems that an engineer, or the kind of process that an engineer will go through. So we started off with a problem, which is that right now it's currently really difficult for athletes to quantify their workout. So it's hard to know exactly how hard you ran your last mile. You can kind of get a qualitative feel and say, okay, I feel like I ran pretty intensely, but it's hard to know. And without this concrete data, it's hard to know exactly where your body stands, and it's easy for athletes to overtrain. And so when there's been a lot of discussion about looking at heart rate data to solve this problem, and it's a very useful metric, but the thing is, heart rate data is needed throughout the workout and during the recovery phase as well. But the problem is it can be very difficult to collect this data all the time. With chest straps, they're very uncomfortable and difficult to integrate into your daily life. So one potential solution that Whoop Analytics is working on, which I was working with last summer, is, well, why not design a wireless, lightweight heart rate monitor that you can just wear on your wrist at all times? And what's interesting is there's actually existing technology that already does this. You can take a photoplethysmograph, which is a PPG, and you can obtain it through pulse oximetry, and you can use that to calculate heart rate. Lots of fancy words, but what that basically means is that there's a technology that can shine an LED through your skin and measures how much leaves the skin, therefore calculating how much light is absorbed absorbed in the process, and from there you can calculate the volume of blood over time and from that heart rate. You've probably seen this technology actually in hospitals and like through the finger. But the problem with this transmissive application is that the surface that the light shines through needs to be really thin so that you can so that it can transmit all the way through. Fortunately, this isn't quite applicable for athletes who can't always wear something on your finger or your earlobes. So fortunately, there's another reflective application, which is basically the same technology, but instead of measuring the light that transmits through the surface, it measures the amount that's reflected back. So because, as a result, you can apply it for thicker surfaces such as your wrist, your feet, your forehead, etc. So you can imagine if you can capture this technology and put it under a wrist-worn sensor, you could create a wrist-worn heart rate monitor for athletes. And that's exactly what Whoop's trying to do. Now, part of the engineering challenge comes from, okay, yes, there's this existing technology and we can modify it for our needs, but then how exactly do we modify it for our needs, right? Like maybe if we use a different wavelength, like red light versus blue light versus infrared light, we'll get different readings, and that's actually something that Whoop does see. So that's part of the very creative process. Overall, I just wrap it up, but I just really want to highlight that, as you can see from this example, engineering is not just a series of difficult math and science problems. It's really an iterative design process, and it's a way of thinking. And kind of going off that, as a result, it's definitely not limiting yourself to a single career path if you decide to do engineering, because you develop this creative problem-solving ability that's very applicable to multiple industries. So I've seen a lot of engineers go on to do business or start their own company, as we've seen before, and I highly encourage you guys to just get involved in the community and the way of seeing the world and breaking down problems. Thank you.
Student majoring in computer game science, which emphasizes the technical side of game development. A 2011 Gunn grad, he took a variety of multimedia and technology electives ranging from graphical design and video production to introductory programming. Much of his free time at UCI is spent with the Video Game Developers Club, where he works with teams of peers to produce games and learn from industry professionals. He is currently working on a virtual reality game for Oculus Rift. Welcome, Jonathan.
That's right. Hey, so my name's Jonathan Stevens, and I'm a game development student at UC Irvine. So let's go to the next slide. A little about me. I'm a Gunn 2011 grad. My major is computer game science, which I'll be talking about in a sec. Get the next slide there. I'm going to move pretty fast. My thoughts on Gunn, I really loved Gunn. It was really, really great for me. As a school, I think that it's really, really great just because the core studies are very strong. And there's this kind of culture of, excellence, for better or worse, the stress is high, but it's fantastic anyway. But most importantly, electives are really, really great here. So if we go to the next slide, I've got kind of a sampling of what I've studied while I was here. And what I really liked was anything that really had to do with creative use of a computer. So I loved, Photoshop and Flash and animation and programming and video production and all of these things. And I guess the point is that to be an engineer, I don't think you need a whole lot of the math and the left brain programming, problem solving. You just need kind of the spirit, because all of these applications involve kind of this problem solving where you say, I want to make a video, or I want to change a photo in such a way that I get a desired effect. And that involves kind of laying out the process of, cause to effect. How can I get from one place to another with the tools that I've got? So if you can go to the next slide. So as I was graduating from Gunn, I had taken all of these classes, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. All I knew is that I wanted to do something that would kind of integrate all of them, because I really like being able to use all of my skills if I can, because it's kind of a waste otherwise. And while I was searching, I found two colleges in the UC system, Santa Cruz and Irvine, that both had game development majors, and I thought that was great because I could integrate all of those skills. In fact, I could integrate skills that I haven't even covered yet because games use so many. So we can keep going. So a little bit about my major. I'm a computer game science major, which is very, very similar to a computer science major. The main difference is that I swap out a few of the more detailed classes like compilers and operating systems for game-related classes, things like computer graphics and artificial intelligence and stuff like that, things that may be electives in the CS major but are required for me. So in the end, I come out with something like a CS degree, but with a little more hands-on experience. And the reason I'm talking about that is, next slide. A lot of people don't really think that computer games may be that serious. They ask me if I'm a very, very serious gamer, for example. They ask me, why not just do computer science? Why not, can you find a job in the industry? Can you get a job anywhere with a computer game development major? And I think that the problem with that is just that it implies that they're somehow not useful and not serious or not really real in the sense, a lot of these other engineering applications are. And that's not really true. Games are really hard to make. And the industry itself is huge. It's bigger than the film industry, probably about double the size. If you're just talking about the games alone, it's enough to dwarf it. And when you add in things like consoles, doubles it again, roughly. I'm not doing specific figures. And you can kind of divide the whole process into several roles: programming, art, sound, design, production, business. And there's so many things that you can do. And these are giant categories. They can go way, way down. So let's keep going. At UCI, I'm a big member, or a big participating member of the Video Game Development Club. And it's where I practice a lot of game development techniques, and I learn a lot. It's kind of run like a small game company, which is really, really cool. And they do game jams, they've got a lab, it's great. Let's keep going. So what I'm working on right now are, I've got my classwork, obviously. But as part of the BGDC, I'm working on, I guess, one project. The first one was string theory, but that's done. That was a game jam. We did a full game in 4 days, which is really a stunning accomplishment. But I'm working on Panoptic. In my personal time, I work on, just studying. I never try to stop learning it. It's really important. And I do photography. So let's keep going. Actually going to move past string theory because it was kind of small, but keep going to Panoptic, which is kind of my favorite. It's my passion project. One more slide. So Panoptic is a first-person horror survival game. And it kind of centers around these statues. If you're a fan of Doctor Who, you'll know this one. Basically, as long as you can't see them, they are able to move. And this is a really, really it's like peekaboo on steroids, right? Because if I'll keep going. But yeah, I've been working on integrating the Oculus Rift, which is great, because the whole game centers on watching them. And if you can physically move your neck and then look away and they've moved, it's great. Let's keep going. Just one last slide. I have a little demo here if we can get the video going. If you can skip to about 2/3 of the way through, this is a little gameplay sample. I wouldn't do this from the beginning. It's a little long. Just 2/3 roughly. This is great too. Part of the point was so I could actually show the statues in action. It was really incredible. Okay. In any case, thank you.
Okay, for our last speaker, and definitely not the least, is Shilpa Yarlagadda, who is a senior at Gunn and will be attending Berkeley in the fall. She is the founder of Club Academia, a nonprofit ed tech company. Club Academia is built on the platform of the students, by the students, and for the students, as it hopes to provide a world-class education for all students through its concise video tutorials. Shilpa has recently won the $20,000 Wesley Prize for her work and has presented at numerous education conferences. She has been invited to speak at ISTE 14, Dell World, EDU Tech, Student Voice Live, TEDx, and TED events, as well as Building Learning Communities 2014 as a keynote speaker this year. In her free time, she enjoys writing short stories and exploring the outdoors. Welcome, Shilpa.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, and a really big shout out to Mr. Paley for coming up with this event and running it, and especially for also being able to invite me to present here. I'm slightly nervous, especially after presenting after all those amazing speakers. But I'm here to talk to you about a situation I faced a lot in high school. So how many of you guys, when you're studying for tests, if you're students, or if you've studied for tests in the past, have looked like this? And in other situations that are slightly more drastic, you look a little bit more stressed out. And I've definitely faced this issue in real life too. Yeah. And usually when I'm in this situation, especially, right now I actually have an AP Econ exam tomorrow. Some of you seniors might as well. You end up if you don't know the material, you end up usually thinking you can ask a teacher some questions. But if you try to email a teacher really late at night, they're most likely not going to respond. I've tried it before, and they won't respond if you email them at midnight. Unfortunately, I came up with a lot of animations in this presentation, so I'm going to put them all out first. So, if you email them and it doesn't work, you can try using a textbook. And, sometimes the definitions and the way that the materials explained in the textbook might not be the most helpful. So I go online to ask questions, but with Yahoo Answers and all those online forums, they're not necessarily the most credible ways to get information. So what I ended up doing most often was actually turning to online videos for help. Usually on Khan Academy, lots of other sites, and it was extremely helpful, but the only thing that made it difficult was that they were extremely long. And I felt like the most helpful way to actually get the information across and for me to learn was through other students and my peers, especially those in my class. So that's when I came up with the idea that it would be really cool if other students just made video tutorials, just like the people in Khan Academy and all those other online websites. So that's when Club Academia began. So the entire motto of Club Academia is it's of the students, by the students, and for the students. And the reason we believe in that is so many times you're struggling to learn the material. And teachers, for instance, they know the material so well that it's really difficult for them to explain the material to someone who's learning it for the very first time. Whereas students, when you're struggling and you don't understand the material, a lot of times you have a better understanding of how to explain to someone who's in the exact same position as you. And I found that extremely helpful, and I realized even though necessarily I wasn't the best at always understanding material to begin with, that I was able to help a lot of my other friends. So I began recording video tutorials, and soon after that my friends began recording video tutorials as well, and we ended up launching a website where we started posting these videos. So initially, we thought it was just for 1 or 2 students who would be watching the videos, but by the end of summer when we ended up starting a YouTube channel, it turned out that within the first 2 months, more people in New York were actually watching our videos than actually in Palo Alto, which was very surprising for us. And this is how it continued. So I'm going to press through all the animations again if it works. So we created our first video tutorial in July of 2012, and by the end of summer we had about 100 videos, and we launched a simple website. And we realized a lot of people were actually watching these videos and found it extremely helpful, and we were fortunate enough to receive support from Mr. Wesley, who awarded us a $20,000 grant, and we were invited to present at so many EdTech conferences and actually communicate a lot with different teachers to get their input on how we could actually expand this resource. And right now what we actually realized is even though we have almost at this point 800 video tutorials ranging on subjects from music theory to physics, biology, all sorts of subjects, anything you could really think of, what we realized was extremely powerful is that connection you have with the students at your individual school. For instance, we know very well how to create physics tutorials for students here at Gunn High School, but are we able to reach out to other people in other communities, perhaps New York, other countries, in the same way that we could tap into the ways that students learn over here? So actually what we're leaning towards in the future is we're open sourcing our platform, and this summer we're actually hoping to release a new platform called Club Academia Global, where any student can really create their own video tutorial, and we set up a system where teachers can still revise the videos, and this way we could work with communities abroad. And we're actually working with schools in Singapore, Australia, and the Netherlands to actually continue working on this project, and it's been a really great experience. And I think I'm just most amazed by the fact, here at the Gunn community, there's so many people who are just really willing to help you further your projects. They're so supportive. I happened to find the right people my sophomore year, my junior year, who were able to really help me and propel me to work on this project. And I know everyone here, if they have any idea that what they want to do, they can definitely find the support and do it. And I think the hardest thing is just getting started, but once you've started, the Gunn community and the teachers and students are extremely supportive. So definitely go entrepreneurship. You guys should definitely try out any ideas that you have, and you can totally do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shilpa. And thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening to Gunn Engineering Night. We're just going to close off with a few comments from Mr. Paley. Natalie and I have been your MCs for this evening. Thank you.
I'm glad that so many of the speakers tonight talked about how failure is an important thing to learn. Depending on where you were sitting in the audience, you were treated to some interesting electrical issues. We can do all the sound checking we want this hour of the night. We're really sorry how that worked out, but it sounded really good at 5:30, and I'm not quite sure exactly what happened. In any event, I just want to start off by thanking Andrew Skippy Briggs. He has had to manage all this stuff up at the top, and it's been really difficult, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. So first off, I'm in awe. Thank you, speakers. You guys were great. I'm not quite sure what to say other than I'm not surprised that any of you are doing the awesome things that you're doing. I would like to comment on Garrett Reed for a second, if that's okay. I'm not surprised he ended up in security. When he was at Gunn, I guess this would have been, what, the summer of 2004? Right, so yeah, it's the summer of 2004. I get this call, and I'm told that I need to go and talk to Garrett. And I've got no idea why, but I just need to talk to him. So he comes in to my office, and I ask him what's going on, and he says, well, I figured out a way of seeing the grades that teachers are posting. And I'm going, okay, how exactly did this happen? He said, well, I didn't mean to do it. I was just looking at the PAUSD website, and I mistyped something, and all of a sudden I'm on a teacher's spreadsheet with grades in it. And I said, oh, so what are you doing about that? Or what are they doing about that to prevent this from being a further problem? He said, oh, we just aren't supposed to talk about it. This is one reason I don't like posting grades online. I get criticized for that, but it still makes me really nervous. In any event, that was security policy, honest to God, 10 years ago in the Palo Alto Unified. So we're doing a little better now. We actually have really good IT people now, which is nice. Anyway, so I'd like to thank Gunn students, past and present. They're fantastic. I wish I could say I'd been a teacher for all these folks that you heard from tonight. They're all wonderful, and it's been great. Want to thank the members of the board that are here. Dana Tom, Barb Mitchell, and Camille Townsend, thank you for coming. Want to thank my principal, Katja Villalobos. You're never going to find a nicer person on the planet, and I really appreciate everything you've done. I'd like to thank Kim Cowell, the chair of the CTE department. You're not actually as nice as Katja, but you're reasonably nice, and that'll work. I'd like to thank Barb Macraz and Susan Daniel. Barb basically set up an Indiegogo site. You can find that if you like what you saw tonight and you'd like to donate some money to this event, we're about $200 short of our target, or at least we were at the start of the night. It takes a little bit of money to go and put this thing on. I'm almost thinking that we should have you donate to Spangenberg Theater to get new, sound equipment, but regardless, Barb Macraz had everything to do with setting up the Indiegogo site, so thank you. She did a lot of other organizing things too, and Susan Daniel posted all sorts of stuff on the Gunn Engineering Night site. She's responsible for making that. Let's see, and also thank Dean Bunderson for essentially saving us tonight. Apparently, half the people on that side of the room were going to be electrocuted had he not intervened. Not quite sure to say beyond that. Next slide, please. By the way, I hate clickers. I don't know what you guys think of clickers. I hate clickers. Last year we didn't have a clicker. This year we didn't really have a clicker either. So here's the thing. You heard from Nick Sturiale that he wants to give you money. Well, somewhere in this auditorium there are 2 seats. You have to look carefully. I mean, you're really gonna have to look, because it's gonna be the real back of the seat that you're sitting on, or maybe someone else will be sitting on. There are 2 of our mascots, and if you can find one, you get a free iPad. This is awesome. I hope the video guys getting it. You getting this? This is fantastic. Look carefully. Now, you can't just peer. You actually have to, look underneath the seats, or else it's not going to work. No, it's not a cruel joke. They really are. I wonder if I should give hints. They're all in the front sections. Nothing in the back. Look at that. Man, this is fantastic. We have one winner over there. Malcolm Jones. Congratulations. You'll get an iPad. I'll give it to you in class tomorrow. Someone's... Pardon? You can hang on a second. Where's the other one? It's over here on the left somewhere. Oh well. Anyway, you found it. Who got it over there? Fantastic. All right, so we got 2 winners. Anyway, thank you very much for coming to Gun Engineering Night. We hope you found it informative, and take care. Have a great evening.